another diagnostic study today. It's 2004 Lexus ES 330. We initially came out and took a peek at it. The alternator's been replaced. The story was apparently a battery went bad, an alternator got changed, a battery got changed. I got here last week and the voltage on the battery was 7 volts. So I tried doing testing with jumper leads, cables off my work van, and that's not the best way to do diagnostics. So she finally talked a nationwide company to warranty the battery out. And I told her, disconnect it once they leave, and she did. I don't know where the screw went, but I have spares. So we're gonna reconnect the battery. But the bolt's broken here. That's fine, that's broken, whatever, but this is dangerous. If anyone knows, battery is isolated in wires throughout the car. The ground is the whole chassis of the car, the engine block, everything that's metal on the car, including this bracket that holds the battery down. So you get a bunch of jiggling and bouncing, and this manages to touch, which is essentially ground, manages to touch the hot lead. You're gonna have sparks, potential fire. If you're not going to do this right, just leave it out. Don't even put it in. Yeah, the battery may move, but it's not going to move much. So we're gonna fix that. We're going to use the self-tapping screw here, and we're going to button this down so that we don't have the danger of a fire and whatnot in this lady's car. Gone ahead and reattached our ground lead, verified our positive lead. We've bolted down our hold down so it doesn't move, as you can see. And now we're going to, we've done our checks on the plug. We got 3 wires here, 1 and 2. One's hot at all times, one's hot while in run. We've checked those, and the other one goes to the light control to turn on the light in the dash. Checking our hots, we ran a fault report. Obviously the battery was dead, and we had this code before. The left front hand left side of this has been repaired, and something with the occupant left hand collision detection needs to be recalibrated. So we're not going to worry about that. We saved this report. I just need to check. We do have a hot there, so let's attack this. No charge symptom. Let's get all this out of the way. Let's go ahead and start this up. Toyotas normally crank and die on their first crank when the battery's been replaced. Alright, we're gonna leave this here. Slide this out of the way. Alright, so we're going to check voltage and amperage going in and out of this battery. So we use our multimeter at 14.2. What happened before, we were at 14 and then it would fall off to 12 very quickly. We're not going to put a load on it yet. We're going to see what our amps are coming out of the alternator. So we're at DC amps. Clamp it to this wire right here. See, we're at 25. I got the clamp backwards. We're at 25 amps charging. Let's see how much the battery's taking. Oh, that's some dry rotted. Oh, this cable's really gimpy. 7 amps being taken there. I think our problem's in this wiring right here. See our voltages at 14. Total amps here should be 25 as well, and there's 6 total. Alright, we've got a load on it. Heated seats are on. air conditioner's on, the fans aren't on, but we're at 48 amps coming out of this alternator. That's perfect. Sounds about right. When the fans come on, it should kick up to about 55 amps, maybe 60. Headlights are on. Everything electrical is on at the moment. 47 amps, and we're holding at 14 volts. So it looks like we have a confirmed fix, but we're going to let it sit for a while. Definitely testing using jumper cables, long 20-foot leads. Even though they're too odd gauge, it's not going to work very well. The air conditioner, there's the fans. Now we're pulling, like I said, 57 amps now instead of 47. 14 volts. We're gonna let this sit and warm up, run for about 10-15 minutes, verify this is all good, and looks like we've already found the problem. It was the battery. And testing with jumper cables just wasn't cutting it. So good batteries needed for the proper alternator diagnostic. And combination of the battery, here lies part of our issue. We're at 390, 400. This thing does not want to idle, so we need to look into that. That might the idle's going to bring up the alternator's charging state by speeding up the rotation on it. Right, we pulled a MotoLogic, our repair guide. It's like all data. We looked up the specs. The curb idle on this car is 680. If we hold the throttle at about 610, just 610 RPMs, it runs and feels smooth. But it's actually idling 200 RPMs too low at like 380, 390, which is reducing the charging capabilities because it's not spinning fast enough. So we need to dial in. Unfortunately, the battery's been disconnected, so we don't really have much long-term fuel trims to see if it's a fueling issue. So we're going to just have to start with kind of the basics. We're going to check the intake air system, make sure there's no brakes in any of that. The throttle body, make sure it's not dirty. We're going to do a few different checks. In what order, I'm not sure yet. But we need to get this idle fixed, and that should fix this vehicle. Got a little black carbon in our intake that we're going to brush out. Hold this open. And because of this, we're going to have a long crank start. Didn't look like that was much of the issue, but you'd be surprised. So we're going to get this intake back in. We have visually inspected it. There's no cracks, no breaks in any of the hoses. So we're going to reinstall it, see what our idle looks like from there, and if we need to do further checking, we will. All right, we are prepared for our long crank. Try it again. Feed it just a little bit of gas. Alright, it's going to smoke a little of the exhaust. Let's see what our data says. We are in closed loop. Idle signal is on. And our idle is perfect at the moment. Let's let it continue to warm up. Let's see what the engine coolant temp is. Engine temperature, coolant. Under coolant, there it is, coolant temp. Coolant temp's at 150. Our idle is now at 691, 681. We'll let it warm up, then we'll continue back under the hood to see our charging system. And that was it. Currently with our air conditioner cycling off and on, 40 amps coming out of the alternator. These fans and AC will kick in just a second. We're going to jump up to 44, 45. It's not having to cycle up to 57, etc., because it's spinning faster. RPMs are holding at 713 versus 390. We did a throttle body cleaning. The plate had a little bit of carbon. It was hard to tell until you cleaned it and you actually test it. Our amperage is holding, our voltage is holding great at 1377, fully loaded. That's headlights, air conditioner, everything is on. And that, we're gonna call that a fix. We're gonna check in our system, make sure there's no idle relearn special function, sensor operation, reset memory. I don't think we're gonna reset the memory. What's this say? Who's this reset? CVT learn values after parts replacement. We didn't replace anything. Delete the CVT, let's learn. So no resets needed, no idle reset. And saved her some money. An alternator's been thrown at it. The battery's thrown at it. Then another battery, so a poor idle, low idle is causing charging issues. Got so low while she's driving it that it just stalled on her. So we'll call that a fix. All right, the 04 Lexus has been fixed. In conclusion, she's been down. Luckily, she has a spare car. She's been out. She hasn't had this car for, she said, a month. It broke down on the side of the road because the charging system, I don't really have the history. A family member put an alternator on it. It left her stuck again. AAA jumped her. AAA fought with her to get a battery. Showed up at her house at 1 o'clock in the morning on a service call because when she was sleeping, because they didn't make it during the day, and just randomly knocked on her door. I'm not going to ask, but the whole issue, all in all, was a low idle. It was idling at almost half of what it should, causing the alternator not to spin fast enough to charge properly. It was putting out amps, but it just couldn't put out enough to keep the car running. So don't just make conclusions and put parts at cars. It's not the way to do this. You have to kind of look at the whole vehicle, not just jump to conclusions. So like and subscribe, and the next video will be about a couple days.